Hey, mate.
Hello and welcome to Gardening Australia. We're back with you for another week and we have come prepared. We've got everything you need to turn your gardening dreams into living, breathing reality. Here's what's coming up. Josh is showing us how to stay safe with potting mix.
Chickens are such a great mate to have in the garden. I've had them since I was a really little kid, but they are voracious eaters. So I want to set up a few little systems to keep my girls in green.
I'm potting up a bowl of bushfood flavours that look good and taste great.
And I'm visiting a delightful country garden nestled high on a hill, 1 hour's drive northwest of Brisbane. Wow, those grass trees are a knockout.
Cowan is just under an hour's drive north of Sydney. It's surrounded by spectacular national parks and nature reserves. The landscape is wild and breathtaking. Tucked away in this beautiful part of the world is a magical water garden that I've wanted to visit for years. Austral Water Garden sits on 7 acres. It's an aquatic paradise with stunning views of the Mugamurra Nature Reserve. Behind every amazing garden, there are equally amazing gardeners, and couple Kevin and Lisa have been managing this paradise in the mountains for decades. So, Kevin, your connection to the gardens here goes back to childhood.
Yeah, that's right. I worked here with Mum and found the fascination through her.
And your mum got the passion through her parents?
Yeah, through her father, William Roberts. He purchased this 7 acres up here.
And so, Lisa, you came into it through partnership.
That's it, yes. We met quite young, and I used to come up here on weekends and watch Kevin working, and gradually I got the bug as well.
It truly is another world, you know. Once you get into it as a collector, you start and you get fascinated and you add more and you learn more, and it is truly another world, having water in your garden.
And is it going down into the next gen?
I reckon
hope
so, yeah.
As they were kids, they loved jumping in the ponds, christening a pond when it was, you know, first built. And they love growing up here, throwing slime at each other and the whole bit.
These concrete rectangular ponds look different to others in the garden. They were built by Kevin's grandfather in the 1940s. They're like 70 years old.
Yeah.
And still going strong.
Well,
Within... Yeah, okay. All right. How do these ponds work exactly?
so we have our stock in them so people can
For sale.
pick and choose. We whip it out, put it in a plastic bag. It's all done for them. They can take it home, place it in their pond or water bowl.
Now, anyone who's got a water feature knows that you've got to look after the water quality. How do you keep it so clear and clean?
Well, basically, it's how nature does it. The right balance of plants. The lily pads provide shade, so that's limiting the sunlight that penetrates the pond.
So it doesn't get as hot.
Yeah, it doesn't get as hot, and sunlight kind of can encourage algae to form, etc. There's no elaborate filtration systems, pumps or anything. We have always...
Relied on the plants. The plants do the work.
Native fish are a great way to go. Small little mozzie-eating cold water fish that are frog-friendly and a great additive to your pond.
They peck at a little bit of algae around the edges, so they play a part.
So for anyone looking at all of these lilies here, where do you begin? How do you categorise their differences?
Basically, the two main groups are hardy or European. So they are more the Monet style that he would have used in his garden. The brilliant magenta, red one up there, escarboucle, excuse my pronunciation, and the other one, Malacelia albida, beautiful, simple white.
Structurally, are they all the same between the tropical and the hardy?
There is a difference. The hardy are the rhizomes. The rhizome is the thick tuberous root part of the lily, whereas the tropicals are a bulb.
Because the hardy varieties start earlier on, they flower from October through to April, and the tropicals come on from December onwards, basically up to around April, May. If you can include one of each in your pond, you do get this extended flowering time.
Are there any other differences between them?
The tropicals are highly fragrant. You can just be walking past a pond and you'll get a waft of their perfume. It can be quite intoxicating. Let's just get one for you, Costa, and you can have a smell of it. There you go.
Whoa, that is intense. That is such a strong bouquet.
No wonder the Egyptians revered these plants. They walked around with them on their heads.
Wow. All right,
So
well,
they're-
let's keep going. Just like the Egyptians. Now, it seems appropriate that this particular variety gets its own pond almost.
Yeah, well, this is the magnificent lotus or sacred lotus. Spectacular this time of year. Quite a large grower, revered by Hindus and Buddhists, I believe. They can be used in a large pond or a decent-sized water bowl. They are summer flowering, loving lots of sun.
I mean, the structure of the leaf, just the way it sits there like literally a water bowl itself.
Yeah.
And the finished flower head is just a piece of architecture, isn't it, Lisa?
Yeah.
Apart from the showy lilies and lotus, many other water plants are necessary for a healthy and attractive water garden.
Some of the plants that you don't notice at first are some of the most valuable. The submerged aquatic, this being a giant snakeskin valsinaria, a native, does wonders for water quality, spawning areas for fish and small frogs. So it's like a little filter. I mean, they actually filter the water through their leaves a little bit. That's something a little bit unique in a pond. This one, a marginal plant, Bormia, again, a nice Australian native plant to have in your pond. Can tolerate quite deep water. This one, red-stemmed Thalia, so it kind of gives a real tropical look to your pond, I think. Adds height. Frogs love to sit on it.
Yeah.
But, this is, our show pond, and we kind of display them in a way where they look the best, Leaving a gap between them is a real sort of Monet style. It's the best way to show them off.
Is this what you do it all for? Is this your real love?
Yes, this is my happy place.
You can't help but feel the serenity when you're surrounded by water gardens like these ones, and makes me understand why Monet spent so much time painting these superstars, the water lilies, in their myriad of colours and shapes and forms. And a little later, we're going to show you how you can put together a water garden at your place.
What is wrong with this citrus tree? Well, it looks like there's been something chomping and chewing and sucking on it. And if you look closely, there's a whole sea of snails that are getting in and sucking the juice out of those tips of the leaves. And it's really amazing because as soon as it starts to rain, like it is now, you'll find that snails will appear. So take care and be aware of them.
What do we mean by sweet soils? And should you taste them? No, please don't taste your soil. We use the term sour to describe acid soils because acid flavours, including things like lemons and vinegar, are sour, but that doesn't necessarily translate to acid soils. We use the term sweet soil as the opposite of acid, that is, alkaline soils. Again, don't taste them, they're unlikely to be sweet.
Can I cut the area of roots off my monstera? These long, brown, tentacle-looking roots, produced by Monstera and other members of the aroid family, like Rhaphidophora and Philodendron, are produced to help the plant climb and vine through dense rainforest environments. They can even reach the forest floor and help prop the plant up, and will root if they touch the soil. They're useful, but not essential. As long as you can provide enough support for your plant, you can safely cut off the roots if you wish.
Check out this amazing splash of purple. It's one of my favourite salvias. It's Salvia leucantha, known as the Mexican sage. And each year, in late summer and autumn, it puts on this amazing show with these beautiful velvety purple flowers. It's beloved by the bees, and when it finishes its bling, basically all you need to do when the foliage starts to look daggy, you cut it right down to ground level and let the new foliage come up.
Want to grow some more native edible plants but feel like you're running out of space? Well, Clarence is here with some potted winners that'll brighten up your garden and your plate.
These days, bush food flavours are on the menus of fancy restaurants everywhere. They're also in the spice aisle of your local supermarket. But if you're anything like me, why not have a crack at growing your own? Loads of bush foods can be grown in containers, and now there are plenty available. And if you can, stock up on plants from an Indigenous owned and run nursery. I'm going to be combining a few favourite flavours in one big pot. I'm using a plastic pot that's a decent size to give the plants room to grow. Now, you want something at least 40 centimetres across. Now, this one I've got, 50 centimetres. It's perfect. I can then place this pot into this slightly larger, much nicer looking container, and it'll look great by the back door near the kitchen. Now, with a pot like this, when it comes time to refresh the mix down the track, it's also easy to lift it out of this beautiful looking pot. And in here, I've got good quality potting mix that drains freely, but also holds moisture and nutrients. For some natives, like grevilleas and banksias, it's important to use a low phosphorus native mix. But with the species I'm planting, any premium mix will do. The feature plant, first into the pot, I'm going with a favourite. It's a 10 out of 10, I reckon. This is cinnamon myrtle, Bacchausia myrtifolia. Now, it's closely related to this classic, lemon myrtle, a medicinal and bush food plant. And a few leaves of this in hot water makes for a great cup of tea. That's a damn fine tea. Cinnamon myrtle tea is also a winner. Now, if I pluck off a leaf here, crushing or rubbing the leaves, they give off a spicy, cinnamony, almost nutmeg fragrance. And it's the leaves we're after for cooking, not so much these gorgeous star-shaped clusters of cream flowers, although they are pretty, and I'm sure you could win a bake-off with a cake decorated with myrtle flowers. It's all about the leaf. These fragrant myrtles are small, compact trees from subtropical rainforests along the east coast. They like morning sunshine, but not the baking hot afternoon sun. Save the baking for the kitchen. Infuse the flavour into cakes, and you can even add some leaves to your next curry. Now, I'm planting this beauty in the centre. This is going to be my feature tree. Now, we'll get to a decent size in here, but it'll be quite happy in this large pot, and it will look absolutely stunning. Now, when you're harvesting, be sure to snip to a node. Now, that way you'll continually flush out new growth and you'll get a whole lot more leaves next time round. So, right here is where we're looking for. Next into the pot is Astromyrtus. Now, these are also part of the myrtle mob. They're a close cousin to cinnamon and lemon myrtle. They have a beautiful, delicate white flowers. But what I'm after here is when the flowers become the sweet, edible fruit. They're midgenberries. They are so delicious. They're a beautiful cross between cinnamon, blueberry, sherbet, sweet. Oh, they're unreal. Astromyrtus are versatile shrubs, and there are a few species to choose from. I'm planting Astromertus dulcis. There's also a species, Astromertus tenuifolia, which is slightly taller. The other plant I'm putting in here is a hybrid of the two, copper tops, which has reddish, rust-coloured new growth. I'm also going with no fuss appleberry. Now, they will grow in a range of climates. The fruits are tubular and they're ripe when they're yellow. And they can have a flavour I can only describe as a little bit like a kiwi fruit or a stewed apple. And they do have a seed inside, so watch out for that as well. They're scrambling climbers, and I'm going to run with that attribute. They can spill over the sides of the pot to make the most of this vertical real estate. There we go. And for a pop of purple in salads, I'm adding a patch of native violet. With some of the best flavours in the one pot, you'll be feasting on the fruits and foliage of your labour in next to no time.
One of the fundamental ingredients in gardening is, of course, growing media. Soil is a living product, teeming with microbes, but some of these can be harmful to us. Here at Gardening Australia, you'll probably notice that we're wearing masks and gloves when we handle potting mix, compost and mulches to reduce the risk of Legionnaire's disease and other issues. And we're encouraging you to do the same. Legionnaire's disease is a severe form of pneumonia caused by breathing in Legionella bacteria. Now, it's not common, but it can be life-threatening, which is why it makes good sense to wear gloves and a snug-fitting dust mask. It's also a good idea to open the bag slowly, away from your face, and if you're handling potting mixes indoors, make sure the area is well ventilated. It's also a good idea to dampen it down if it's dry and dusty. If you've got any mix left after the job, then do your best to seal the bag up to stop the mix from drying out. And clips like this are great for keeping it nice and tight. It's also a good idea to store bags in a cool place away from direct sunlight to reduce the chance of bacterial growth. Now, the medical advice is, if gardeners develop flu-like symptoms that worsen over time, then see a doctor, because early treatment can be a lifesaver. You'll find more information on the Gardening Australia website.
If there's one thing I know about Millie, she's a doer. And she's at it again in the garden. This time, doing something that I reckon you're going to want to have a go at your place.
Well, there's always a lot going on in the garden with a gazillion things needing attention. I reckon the chickens should always get top billing. G'day, girls. A big part of the productive garden here are the hens. They are such a part of the working machine. They play so many roles here. They're compost generators, soil aerators, fertilisers, pest controllers, egg layers, and constant entertainers. So they deserve to be well looked after. After years of temporary fences here that were frankly ineffective and the girls would constantly get over and get into the vegetable garden, we're getting serious about this chook run. It's going to have a roof on it, it's going to be hopefully predator-proof, and of course it'll stop other birds getting in as well. And when you design something from the start, it gives you that great opportunity to install lots of little systems for keeping the girls as happy as possible. And one of them, of course, is to provide greens. Now, in spring and summer, you can get greens all around the garden. The weeds pop up everywhere, and of course, they love a bit of fresh-grown grass. But in winter, it can be so much harder to keep up the supply. So today, I want to install a little system that can do just that. Of course, planting anything into a chicken run is a big risk. They have no delayed gratification setting and they'll eat it straight away. So what I want to do is install a few cages so I can grow plants in the run that are designed for them to eat, but they have enough space and protection to get established before they get access to them. And what I've done is I've actually already made a little folding system. So this is going to be the roof of the cage. This will be the front wall. So then I'm just going to use these sides. I've cut them and they're going to go in and provide that side angle. I'm using one of my favourite new tools. It's a C-clip, it's a fencing tool, and it just wraps a small amount of wire, a little loop around those two pieces, which means they can move quite freely, but they're really securely attached. It essentially makes like a flat pack system that I can fold away when I'm not using it, but it will give those plants a really safe area to grow out of reach of the chickens. Putting the cage together is simple. I'm just attaching it to the mesh wall of the chicken run with some clips. And before you can say, how many eggs would an egg layer lay if an egg layer would lay eggs? Job's done. I reckon that is going to be a perfect little cover. So now I've just got to prep this area and get planting. It's always the thing when you're gardening with chickens, there's always going to be a couple of volunteers to give you a hand. So what do you plant for the chickens? Well, essentially you can plant anything lovely and leafy. And so I'm basing my planting plan on the things that traditionally they've nicked from my own vegetable garden. Things like silver beet, I've got beetroot, some brassicas and other leafy greens. And I always raise more seedlings than I actually need for the garden. It gives me that opportunity, if something fails, to fill a gap. But it also means I've got some hand-reared seedlings that'll be perfect for them. I'm putting heaps of silver beet up the front and some Brussels sprouts up the back. You can see that I'm absolutely jamming the seedlings in because I'm not worried about them reaching full size or maturity. Really, I just want lots of leaves for the girls. I've got some old seed of radicchio, some lettuce, some kale and a handful of wheat. I'll mix it all with a little bit of soil and then sprinkle it all on top. And now the finishing touch as the cage is lowered into place and secured. Oh, and of course, the truly finish, just add water. Sorry girls, you're just gonna have to wait. I also want to make sure that the girls can have a bit of fun when they're hunting down a meal. And so I'm going to put in an elevated feeder. I'm going to suspend this old hanging basket from the rafter and then I'm going to absolutely pack it with goodies that they have to jump and access in that way. It'll give them a bit of exercise and it'll keep them entertained for hours. One of the downsides of enclosing the whole chicken run is that it does limit my access. Previously, I could just hoik any old handful of weeds or rubbish from the garden straight into the run without having to go through the gate. But I've decided to put in something that I'm calling the snack hatch. So it is still just made with the same tools, the C-clips and the angle grinder. I don't know what you can't do with those. And it opens inwards. It's at a nice height, so I think it'll be really safe. I can have my roof on and access the girls too. For all of my little nifty systems, if you're going to do one thing for your girls, I reckon it is this. It is a bale of straw. They love jumping up, scratching the seeds out when it's new, and then over time, the manure hits it, the rain hits it, and it breaks down into beautiful compost. Every couple of weeks, I turn them over to reveal their non-veg option because chickens are little dinosaurs. They need to eat meat as well, and you get so many insects and worms that'll work their way up in there. But really, I'm here to do anything I can to improve the life of the hens because I love having them around. But they can be pretty destructive in the garden, so I'm hoping that these little systems are going to make sure we can all have what we want.
Still to come on Gardening Australia, Hannah gets herbal on a hill. I plant out a potted pond garden. And we meet a scientific legend of the West. When I say rambling country garden, you're probably thinking tight hedging, beautiful stonework, rows of salvias, sweeping views, maybe even a wisteria arbour. Well, Jerry's found it all and more in Queensland. Take a look.
I'm in the Somerset region of southeast Queensland, about an hour's drive northwest of Brisbane. I'm visiting a property called McIlvennan at the gorgeously named Split Yard Creek. McIlvennan's owner, Lisa Harries, and her family moved to this 250-acre property 16 years ago. So what was the garden like when you first arrived?
We had a very, very bushy block at the top of a very steep hill. Lots of gum trees, saplings. Yeah, it needed a lot of work. So I've always loved the English garden aesthetic. I've loved the big country gardens of Victoria and New South Wales, and I knew that's what I wanted here, those beautiful rambling, strolling country gardens. So that was the vision, really, to try and achieve that in southeast Queensland.
Well, I can feel the pull of the garden. Can we have a tour, please?
Let's go.
Thanks.
So, Jerry, this was the first bit of planting we did when we came here after we built our house, and we went for a formal hedging area here. We've got the weeping lily-pilly, the Mariah, and the Japanese box, and I think it works well. It frames the bush out towards the west there.
When I see this, I just think of the gardener. Who does the hedging?
That'd be me, Jerry, and it's a real love-hate relationship.
Right, right. I get that. Look, I love this brick. I think it's a lovely warm surface.
Yes, it's a beautiful tumbled brick. I think it gives it a really lovely warm country feeling.
It does. And you've got Portwine magnolia clipped as a hedge, and it's flowering.
Yes, it's that beautiful, beautiful flower that smells like bubblegum. I actually smelt a waft of it yesterday, and it's just delicious.
I like the dichondra too. That's a nice little informal edge.
By accident.
Oh, right. Well, often these things work best when they're by accident.
Yeah, they can amaze you.
And speaking of amazing, wow, those grass trees are a knockout. Were they here all the time?
Jerry, we transplanted them from a ridge just over the way. Dad brought them in on the back of his ute, and we dropped them over the fence with his excavator, and they just took off.
Wow. Now, you see, that's not textbook care, but I guess they're coming from the same location where they thrive, but it's still an amazing story. They are so happy.
Yeah, and I think they lend a great architecture to the garden. It's a really interesting little point.
And this is just wonderful. The perfect support for the perfect plant.
Yeah, it's a really great one, Jerry. It's Patria or poor man's wisteria, which works really great in our climate in southeast Queensland. Yeah. And it's really, really pretty when it's in full bloom.
And a lot less work than wisteria to maintain.
A lot less work, Jerry, yes.
And you get 2 blooms a year from these.
Yes, Jerry. It's a fantastic plant for southeast Queensland, so hardy.
I love these sculptures.
Barbed wire that came from the property when we first moved here, all that was here was a really rickety old boundary fence. So when we replaced the fencing and had all this spare barbed wire, so I thought, well, I might make some spears, and so here we are.
Why not? You've got this wonderful gravel, which is making a gorgeous scrunch. And just under there, you've got the shade with that walking iris.
Yeah.
So many contrasts.
And they've come out just for you today, Jerry. And the liquid amber at the end of June will be just spectacular, red and yellow. And if we get a really cold start to our winter, we might even see some black and red in there.
Fantastic. It's such a gorgeous tree. And, of course, not everybody can grow one of these in their gardens. You've got the luxury of the space.
Yes, exactly, because they are a very big tree.
Lisa has split her garden into distinctly different zones or rooms, which are connected by gorgeous pathways, all with their own unique characteristics. Oh, what made you choose crepe myrtle?
They're really, really beautiful trees in our climate. They are really hardy and they are deciduous and give the garden that lovely country kind of vibe that I was going for. And they give you something different in every single season. At the moment, we've got this magnificent bark that's emerging. And in midsummer, we get these beautiful big white blousy blossoms. They're absolutely gorgeous.
A great choice. There's even a nod to Japan. So this is your Japanese garden?
It was just an interesting way to deal with an awkward old space, really.
I love the bamboo.
Aren't the black trunks absolutely striking?
And just around the corner, another surprise. Wow, I didn't expect to see this. How did this evolve?
It's a little bit of whimsy in the garden, Jerry. It was a bit of a problem space. It's just a standard old cooch and it just got a little bit too much shade, particularly in winter. We came up with this.
So this is Maria Minimin?
Yes, it is. It's a tough little customer that doesn't get any extra water, just what falls from the sky. Great performer in the garden.
I love these magnolias. Now, you prune these, don't you?
Yes, I'm just waiting for the weather to cool down a little bit and I'll take the tops and sides out of them and give them a nice feed and mulch them up and then, you know, come spring, they'll be pumping more flowers and it'll be glossy and gorgeous.
Well, you've turned a problem lawn into a really special individual space.
Yes,
well done.
Thank you.
Lisa's latest project are these raised veggie beds. What are your plans?
Kale and broccoli and cauliflowers and cabbages, herbs and anything that we can use to cook with.
And I love the way you've used the olive trees, because this is on the western sun, so they'll protect the whole of the vegetable garden.
Yeah, they give that lovely afternoon shade.
The olives as well.
Yes, we've got two types, Manzanillo and Frantoia there. We have had some success, but they didn't flower this summer, so maybe next year.
Now, this is quite a serious height off the ground. Is this by design, so you don't have to bend?
No, Jerry. We have recently had some little neighbours move in, some bandicoots, and they've been digging up a storm, and it was either they were going or I was going, and they quite clearly were not going. We've come up with this alternative, so I think I've won the day, at least this battle anyway.
So what area are we entering now?
This is our fire pit garden, Jerry. During COVID, because we couldn't travel anywhere, we decided let's give ourselves a new project, so we decided to build a fire pit for the times when we can get back together with our family.
Why not? Now, this is an unusual grass.
Yes, it's a panicum, and I was a little worried the first year that it sort of sprouted up and looked lovely. I trimmed it right back down to the ground, and it didn't come back. Killed this thing and then up it's come and it's absolutely glorious and
it's very uncommon too. This is actually quite a sensory garden. You've got beautiful furry leaves on that stachys, the scent from the heliotrope. You've got the germander over there as well. This is a really different feel in this room.
There's a lot going on here, but there's still little snatches repeated through the garden if you really look. There's a lot of salvias in the garden, Jerry. I'm a bit of a salvia addict, but they're really great in our climate. They're so giving and they give that lovely blousy effect that I love in a country garden.
Well, I think the bees are thanking you for that decision.
And I thank the bees too.
It's not an insubstantial garden that you're dealing with here.
No, but it's thoroughly enjoyable too. And I hate the gym, so it's great exercise.
Lisa's garden demonstrates that with sound foundations, good design, years of hard work and persistence, literally anything is possible.
Pretty as a picture. That's the Grevillea Peaches and Cream. And in front of it is a rather simple foliage plant, and it looks like a yucca. Indeed, it has got the yucca name in there. It's Beschorneria yuccioides, and it's a butte plant like the yucca. It'll grow like a succulent, likes the sun, but look what happens. It sends out these amazing shoots, like a giant asparagus on steroids. And I love the red stems and then the branchlets that are red and these magnificent hanging flowers. See how they hang down like that? It's a gorgeous thing. People find them really good to grow in a garden. They love the sun, good drainage, of course, but they're one of those succulent plants that just go on and on. What you do with the stems, once they get woody and hard and they finish flowering, you trim them off, cut it off down at the base, and it will send up a new one next season. They are a good plant. Have a look out for them. Beschkorneria yuccoides.
If you've ever gardened on a slope, you know how tricky it can be. You're literally pushing uphill. Well, fortunately, resourceful Hannah's here to show us how you can use herbs to stay on top of things.
My hillside garden is not for the faint-hearted. It's mountain goat country with its steep and challenging site, requiring plenty of planning and loads of hard work. Over the last few years, we've tried to turn this challenge around. Terracing and retaining the ground create productive and useful areas and making the most of the delicious northern sun. But you don't need a slope this steep to face some of the same challenges, with water, nutrients, mulch, and basically all your hard work running down the hill. But there is a fragrant fix. Herbs. By retaining the edges of beds on a slope, you can prevent runoff and produce a harvest. Many of the toughest perennial herbs can make great edging plants, as they're low-growing, easily propagated, and smell good when you run the barrow over them. They're also smashing plants for attracting many of the pollinating and predatory insects. Oregano is one of the best, forming a tight, mounding mat of dense foliage. Propagating it is best by doing it through root division with an existing clump or a newly purchased pot. Simply snip into a few clumps, around the size of a 50-cent coin. You can pot them up or simply plant them out straight away. Thyme is another edgy herb, particularly good in the heat and spilling over a drop, like a timber or stone edge. Thyme roots easily from cuttings in spring and summer, but you can also plant seedlings. Space them around 20 to 30 centimetres apart to create a tight edge of foliage. Parsley is another plant that will pop up randomly around your garden as it self-seeds, like these ones. But you can also use them to great effect, creating an edible and ornamental edge. Taller Italian parsley is vibrant, vigorous and delicious. These are particularly productive planted on an edge that will receive water and nutrient runoff from other crops. While you can obviously get seedlings, as a carrot cousin, they love to be direct sown. Parsley seed is tiny, so clear the area of weeds thoroughly and prep a little seed bed. Mix with some soil and sprinkle. Water well, and when they pop up, thin seedlings to around 30 centimetres apart. While there can be many challenges when gardening on a hillside, there can also be many opportunities to foster a fragrant feature. So, get planting.
Earlier in the show, Kevin and Lisa gave us a tour of their stunning water gardens, which are a culmination of generations of loving labour. We also got an introduction to their show-stopping lilies and lotuses. While we can dream about an aquatic wonderland like Kevin and Lisa's, we can also get started by planting out our own small version in our backyards. For those gardeners who are a little bit daunted by the idea of transitioning from soil to water, don't worry, we've got this. So when it comes to creating a water garden, what are the most important things you need to consider in choosing a water bowl?
The size, the depth, the material that they're made of, this one being a lightweight fiberglass or a polymer resin, as that one is.
Yeah, look at that, it's pretty light.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you can also include the ceramic bowls that you may have to seal the bottom and maybe, to make them waterproof.
And then the next step, of course, is choosing the plants to go in there. Lisa, where do you begin?
The most important thing is the depths of water. So 30 centimetres is the minimum depth. Any deeper is better. And we try to create 3 levels in the pond. So the submerged aquatic is great beneath the water. And this one's a myriophyllum. It's a little Australian native plant. It's in the shallow water creeper group. So it likes the edges and it's sort of like a ground cover in the water. And then we would put something like a tall marginal in and they create height. So this is an antique taro. They like shallow water as well. So it likes around 20 to 30 centimetre depths of water. Then we would put the beautiful water lily in and you could put 1 or 2 of these in and that has the floating leaf. The hardy variety are early flowers, so they get their leaves in September and they start flowering in October, and there are many flushes over the seasons. It's also nice if you can fit 2 water lilies in to get hardy and tropical. So this is a tropical variety. There's its flower. This particular one's called green smoke, and these have a continual procession of flowers over a 6 or 7 month period, from around late November, December through to May, June.
Is there anything specific that you do to get all of the plants pond ready?
We recommend putting gravel or coarse river sand on top, just to create a barrier between the mud and the water. Keeps your pond a bit cleaner. We sort of recommend to cover your pond around 1/2 to 2/3 in various plant life. That's a general rule of thumb.
Fish would be an addition. The little Australian native fire-tailed gudgeons are a good choice.
Oh, yeah?
They will eat the mosquito wriggler. They're very clean and easy to look after. They're also frog-friendly fish.
What's the real value of having one of these in your garden?
It adds a little oasis to a garden. It brings frogs, dragonflies. You can sit there for an hour or two and time just disappears because you're just enjoying the reflections and the movement of the fish and plants in the pond. Yeah.
So now you can create your very own water garden, and over time it will become a place of great biodiversity and beauty, with, of course, a water lily changing and evolving across the seasons. Of all the garden features that decorate a garden, this will become one of the most fascinating. Western Australia is an incredible place. Ancient weathered soils combined with jaw-dropping plant diversity. But it also produces some of the greatest plant minds in the country. And this next story introduces us to one of the best.
We had an ambition to retire to a place that was by the beach, because we both love the beach. We visited Albany, saw this little road running to a place called Good Beach. So we bought a house. I'm not a gardener myself, first to admit it. My wife, Chris, is the gardener in this household, and I provide a little bit of support now and then. I'm Stephen Hupper, Professor of Biodiversity at the University of Western Australia's Albany campus. I was born near Byron Bay, a little town called Bangalow. As a kid, I can remember just exploring the rock pools along the beach and enjoying that. You know, just never know what you'd find. I sort of never stopped doing it, I guess has been my career. Between first and second year high school, we moved west to Western Australia, where I've been ever since. I knew at the end of high school that I wanted to have a career that had some outdoor component. So I enrolled in a general science first year. That got me into botany. I did do a PhD on kangaroo paws. In 1977, I had the offer of the state's first flora conservation research and policy officer in the then Department of Fisheries and Wildlife. 14 years into my paid work, the directorship of Kings Park and Botanic Garden was advertised. I wanted to have a research component to the job. Unfortunately, the organisation was small enough, I think, for that to be acceptable. I decided to work on eucalypts, kangaroo paws, orchids and granite rock plants. Teamed up with a CSIRO colleague, Ian Brooker. Over 10 to 15 years of collaboration, we named 100 new species of eucalypts. That's about an eighth of the present genus. So after 12 years in the organisation, I got an invitation from UWA to join the School of Plant Biology. There, my task was to establish new degrees in conservation biology and start teaching them. And then out of the blue, I got an executive search company from London saying the directorship of Royal Botanic Gardens Kew is vacant. Well, to me, Kew is the #1 botanic garden in the world. The Arboretum alone had 30,000 tree species. You know, the herbarium, 7 million specimens. 5 years into the Kew job, and got an email from UWA Albany saying we'd like to have a terrestrial ecologist chair as a contract job. Coming to Albany, back southwestern Australia and the south coast, the wonderful granite headlands. They were just superb research opportunities. Albany also had a large Aboriginal population, about 10% of the population. So I thought, do they have anything to tell us that would help Western technological societies do a better job of caring for biodiversity? Initially, I set up the yard as an experimental garden to test ideas I developed in my PhD about why are the kangaroo paws short-stemmed like cat's paws or long-stemmed like red and green kangaroo paws. And you can hear the New Holland honeyeaters behind us. Having honeyeaters in a garden that are wild is just real important to me. So we've cultivated the garden in a way that's honeyeater friendly. With the eucalypts, they mean something to me in terms of my research. There's 4 of them here, each of which have got a story. So the Eucalyptus subspecies magna, silver princess, it's known as in the trade, is one of the first taxa that Ian Brooker and I named. That's this beautiful weeping gum that many Australians will know and love, and it's grown right across the world now, you know. Brandiana's got the biggest nuts in the eucalypts and the biggest number of seed within each nut found in the eucalypts. Sweet Maniana is a little less well endowed. It's a sprawling mallee. And finally, the big tree behind us here on the road verge is the Eucalyptus utilis, meaning of utility, because it's widely grown as a compact street tree right across Australia and again in many other countries these days. One thing that developed at Kew was the final first publication of this body of theory on old versus young landscapes. What sort of responses would you predict to occur? And I came up with 7 predictive hypotheses. You know, it really was about shedding most of what I'd learnt at uni and starting again and just working out how would natural selection work if the landscapes on which the plants and animals existed were there and had been there for tens of millions of years. They're close to the coast and disturbance levels are relatively minor. If you're in the middle of a continent, you get extremes in temperatures, basically. Whereas if you're sitting right beside oceanic water, that tones down those climatic variations. I'm standing on a place called Stony Hill in Torndirrup National Park, which is the highest point in the local Albany area. It's provided a climatically relatively stable condition for tens of millions of years. Now, the last time a glacier, for example, covered this landscape was 250 million years ago. That's a long time ago compared to most of the Northern Hemisphere, where it was 18,000. And you realise the opportunity for existence in terrestrial environments has been extraordinary. That's the specialness of the southwest Australian landscape. So as a conservation biologist, the number one maxim in this sort of landscape is care for the hilltops. And if you read the textbooks, it says care for the wetlands. You know, they're portrayed as fragile areas. If you want to see fragility, this is where fragility really exists. To me, this is the Mona Lisa of biological diversity. And to come in as whitefellas and think that you can repair and restore the stuff we're standing around by applying techniques worked out in the Northern Hemisphere is like giving a 2-year-old a paintbrush and saying, come up with a Mona Lisa. We're just in our infancy in terms of understanding what's here. And we need a degree of humility, firstly, to recognise that. And then secondly, the Noongar's recognised it. I've got the opportunity of living on country in daily contact with people. One family in particular, the Knapp family. Lynette is one of the elder sisters in that family. The very first conversation I had with Lynette about caring for country, she said, you've got to come up with a clear understanding of the difference between, in her words, cart and belia. So cart is their word for the human head, but it's also their word for these hilltops. And like the human head, these hilltops have eyes and ears, they believe. They overlook country. Belia is their name for fresh water. Lynette said that's the big division in landscape that you have to recognise, because all sorts of things flow from that recognition. And it took me a microsecond to realise she was talking about old landscapes and young landscapes. This is granite banksia, Banksia verticillata, and it's only known within 2 kilometres of the coast, pollinated by honey possums and honey eaters, flowers in April. So all we've got here is a fruiting cone. After fire, the fruiting cones open and drop seed. This takes more than 10 years to flower, let alone set fruit. And if the fire frequency is greater than 10 years, then it's cactus. This is a West Australian vine that has become a weed in southeastern Australia. And to the Noongars here, it's called kamak. And it produces this beautiful flower, the blue flower, which then develops into, I've got tiny fruits here that become lozenge-shaped, about 2 or 3 centimetres long. Edible native plant, very important to the Noongars, and a weed. This is Hakea elliptica, which is an Albany to Mount Many Peaks endemic. Beautiful white flowers, as you can see. Insect pollinated, we presume. I love it for this time of year because of the foliage on the new growth. It's this golden colour, so you can literally see drifts across the hillside of the pale golden new growth on the Hakea, just as it's bursting into flower. I'm very lucky. You know, I just think it's what a way to live. You know, I couldn't think of a better place to live. We've got a 3-kilometre beach of pristine white sand, and to have not only that, but the bush adjacent and the opportunity for continuous, endless curiosity and discovery is just ideal for someone of my interests.
I hope that got the gears upstairs turning, because we've got your list of jobs for the weekend ready and waiting. Cool temperate gardeners, it's harvest time for pear trees. Fruit collected when underripe and left to ripen indoors is said to be sweeter, juicier and simply perfect. Yum, yum. If you're cleaning out the shed and come across unwanted garden chemicals, don't just bung them in the bin. Get in touch with your local council, who can advise of your closest disposal point. Elevate your salad game with lamb's lettuce, a glorious, easy-to-grow green. Also known as corn salad, this quick crop is ready to eat in just 6 weeks and is perfect planted under other edibles. In warm temperate gardens, cabbage white butterfly and their larvae are making their presence felt. Keep these hungry hordes at bay by installing taut, fine veggie netting over baby brassicas. To confuse cabbage white butterflies even more, pop white pansies into your patch, sowing them between target plants. The bright white flowers are said to deter these territorial butterflies. Love it or loathe it, it's time to plant coriander. Direct sow a couple of seeds in a sunny spot now and fling in a few extra seeds each fortnight to keep the supply pumping and the beneficial insects buzzing. The subtropics are bathed in perfect purple petals thanks to the terrific Tiburtina. Preferring acidic soils, these tough, long-flowering faves are a must-have, and many cultivars thrive in pots. Delightful to look at and dead easy to grow, it's the perfect time to take succulent cuttings, letting the pieces dry out for a day or two before potting up and sharing with friends. pH testing your soil is a fantastic thing to do when transitioning from one season to the next. Store-bought kits are easy to use and the results will let you know exactly what your soil needs. Tropical gardeners have a go at some unusual heat-loving herbs. Try the quick-growing mushroom plant, which, as the name suggests, has mushroom-flavoured foliage. Mushrooms not your thing? Hook into the fabulous fish herb, which really tastes just like fish and can be used in any dish calling for fish sauce, especially papaya salads. It's the perfect time of year to treat your tropical trees. With sharpened secateurs, remove any suckers from the base of trees, weed around the drip line and top up mulch, ensuring it's clear of the stem. Want the perfect tree for arid areas? It might well be the carob. Tolerant of all sorts of weather extremes, carobs are beautiful shade trees, excellent stock fodder, and they produce a delicious chocolate substitute. Keep an eye on ripening olives to ensure you harvest them when you want them. Whether you like them green or black, olives are inedible raw and need to be brined before you tuck in. Sow silver beet this weekend. This fast-growing leafy green does best in a sunny spot with a fortnightly liquid feed. Try the productive Ford Hook Giant or the ever-popular rainbow varieties. Have a good, productive weekend in the garden wherever you are. And if you haven't already, head over to the Gardening Australia website to subscribe to our regular newsletter. Well, that's it for this week, but we are already baking up some special treats for next time. Here's what's on the menu.
This courtyard that I'm visiting proves that when it comes to small spaces, you can still dream big, even if you're a renter and even if you're just a beginner.
Autumn is a busy season in our garden because I'm planting lots of goodies to make sure we have abundant harvests for the cooler months ahead.
And I'm going to show you a simple activity to capture the beautiful colour of flowering plants. This can be your abstract expressionism phase.